Enix and Quintet created 3 renowned RPGs for the Super Nintendo: Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, also known as Illusion of Time, and the almighty Terranigma. This week I'm playing the first in that kind of trilogy, Soul Blazer. Let's see if it's still fun to play in 2011. The first thing that struck me about Soul Blazer is that it actually has quite a bit of common with ActRaiser, which I suppose is unsurprising since both games were created by Quintet. Just like in ActRaiser, your character's some kind of divine being who's been sent to Earth to fix the planet's problems and eradicate evil. Even some of the sound effects are ripped straight out of ActRaiser. To first impressions, the graphics really aren't very good. It's worth noting that this game took 2 whole years to come from Japan to Europe and Australasia, so I guess it's forgivable considering this is a relatively early Super Nintendo game. But then again, ActRaiser looked much better than this. Anyway, graphics obviously aren't everything, it's the gameplay that counts. The core gameplay of Soul Blazer is pretty repetitive actually, and the sequence of events reminds me a bit of Dark Chronicle on PS2. In a nutshell, each area of the map's got a village and some dungeon areas. As you go through the dungeons, enemies pop out of these holes in the ground and you have to kill them all. Unfortunately, there isn't a huge amount of strategy in dispatching the enemy apart from the fact that your sword swing is most powerful to your little guy's right. You get magic spells as you go, but I never found much cause to use them. I mainly just relied on the trusty sword. Once you've depleted the supply of monsters, the enemy vortex becomes a button, and when you press it, you unlock something back in the village. And you keep doing that with the occasional maze or boss, and that's pretty much it. Of course, with the village slowly filling up with people and landmarks, you can then go back and get all kinds of bonuses and rewards, and there's a lot of back and forthing that needs to happen. So the game repeats this basic pattern, moving to a new location when you've beaten a particular dungeon. You know, at first I was pretty dismissive. I found it repetitive and a little bit dull, but you know, the more I played, the more engrossing I found Soul Blazer. I don't even know why exactly, but I ended up playing all the way to the end. I didn't find much of it really challenging, except for the bosses, they were annoying, and a couple of times I needed to consult an online guide to find the answer to some obscure fetch quest that I didn't understand, but for the most part it was pretty straightforward and linear. When it comes down to it, Soul Blazer really isn't much like Terranigma at all. In fact, I probably wouldn't even call it a traditional role-playing game, apart from the experience points your character gets. It's not one of the Super NES's best titles, but I found it to be strangely enjoyable. I found it much more engaging than Luna, for example. Not the greatest game ever, but yeah, this one stands the test of time. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is actually based on the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon series, which starred Steve Urkel as Sonic. This is the cartoon version of Robotnik, not the video game one. Anyway, there's some dumb story about beans being turned into robots, but who really cares? This is Puyo Puyo, a popular Japanese alternative to Tetris. In reality, it's actually a bit closer to Dr. Mario than Tetris, and there's a little bit of Bejeweled in there too, but even then it's a different game, and to my mind, a much trickier one than any of those others. So there's the different coloured beans that join up when they touch other beans of the same colour, right? And if you get 4 or more touching each other, they disappear. The concept itself's fairly simple, but there's a lot of strategy in Puyo Puyo, and I'm happy to admit, I don't got it. You've got to set up your combos so as you clear one lot of beans, another lot will fall down and set off a chain reaction, and I can't seem to think that far ahead. I could only beat the first few levels before throwing my arms up in the air and admitting defeat. Fortunately, since this is a password-based game, I could skip ahead and try a couple of further levels, including the last boss fight with Robotnik himself. But I didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning against any of them. I know some people really dig Puyo Puyo, all power to them. I just find it a bit too challenging. Give me good old Tetris any day. Next week, an opossum dresses in armour and kicks some butt. The Empire strikes back, and it's super! And the speedy blue hedgehog is back for Chapter 3. See you soon. Peace out.